think about what you could do differently if you knew completely what you had from a quality perspective. How much quality or grade are we as a farm giving away every year unknowingly? We do a great job with yield, but when it comes to quality, we don't have, as farmers, we don't have the ability to measure that. So we really can't do a whole lot from that perspective. This, in my opinion, is coming and is going to be something that becomes a mainstay, and it's going to be across the board. Everybody's going to be using it. It can set that golden standard. What could I do with this information now? And what are the things that I haven't thought of before? And you can't manage what you can't measure.
Hey folks, welcome to the What the Futures podcast, your quick guide to better farming decisions. All right folks, welcome into episode 91 of the What the Futures podcast. I hope you're having an outstanding end of the week here. This episode should be hitting you late Thursday evening. Of course, each and every episode recorded in the UPL studio. And I just have to acknowledge, I get a little inside info over at UPL, right? They're a partner of the show, a big sponsor of the Crop Marketing Made Cool conference. We have a lot of dialogue, a lot of discussion. They are adding staff right now across the prairies. They are looking to grow their team across the prairies in a space where you see a lot of cutbacks, a lot of layoffs, a lot of uncertainty. They're going for it. They're getting after it, and they are growing that team. And I think that's a cool thing in Western Canadian agriculture right now. So hats off to UPL on that one. All right, I did a live episode here Monday, Labor Day, earlier this week. If you didn't get a chance to catch it, I'm going to get in the habit. We're going to do the live episode on YouTube. At some point, we're going to toss it as a podcast in that platform. We're going to toss it out there for a couple days, give people a chance to listen to that live episode. It's unedited. It's just the straight cut. Give people a chance to check it out, and then, we'll remove it and move on. So the live episodes, you'll see those coming across here as a short, not a short podcast, but for a short amount of time, they'll pop up in your, wherever you catch your podcasts. All right. So if you want to see the live show, you can check it out on X. We're working on Facebook and Instagram right now. And of course, you can go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We have more than 500 subscribers now, hit our goal here, our summer goal. Last I checked, we were at like 532. So thank you so much. Keep hitting that subscribe button on YouTube and help us grow the channel over there. Even by the time you listen to this, there is a good chance that I've done my live episode Friday with Chuck Penner, Left Field Commodities. We're going to try to drill down here on 10 different commodities, 10 different crops, try to give some perspective. And so even by the time you listen to this, that live episode may be available as well. All right. So Chuck's my first live guest. So we'll have some fun with that for Positive Friday. That's going to be September 6th, something like that. September 5th. There we go. So let's keep moving along here. It's challenging, folks. I hit the record button late tonight for a couple different reasons. Actually, those of you checking this out on YouTube, you can let me know if you noticed the difference in this episode. There is a slight change that happens in episode 91, and I might have to figure out a prize for whoever guesses it, but there's a little change that happens, something that I've been working on for the last while, and we finally got her done here. I met with my podcast editors. We made some tweaks, got some things done. If you can let me know what you think that is, what that changes in this episode, and we'll see if we can hook you up with a prize. I hit record late. I had my fantasy football draft tonight as well. I've got a draft with 11 farmers across the prairies, big NFL fans. And the trophy currently sits at my brother's house. It's a ugly trophy to display, but it makes its rounds. It's at my brother's house until we crown a new winner. And we just wrapped up our draft here as well. So NFL season kicking off this week for those of you that enjoy a little football down under there. Down under. What am I saying? Down in the U.S. All right. Now, crop marketing right now, folks, there's a lot of stuff to talk about, but it's obviously not a lot of fun. Like, we've been here before. We've gone through this before, but I would say for me, the difference is that some crops are facing some steep declines that are making everything else, kind of magnifying the pain of everything else. Like, I was looking at my Bunge wheat price here earlier today of $6.10 a bushel. And I said it many times on the show last year where buyer called, the price of wheat was like $6.38 or I don't know, between $6.30 and $6.40 in the fall. And so all I'm saying is that, we've been to this spot. We were here last year. Look at a Minneapolis wheat chart. It's about the same, right? It's a little bit worse. Obviously, we're seeing the lowest future since December of 2020, but it's about the same. Okay. The problem here is that the narrative out there from the folks in the industry is that we had a cooler summer. We had some cooler weather, and that, resulted in a large crop. Last year, we had everyone saying this is such a big, massive crop in June that it took us until wintertime to convince the industry that this crop actually wasn't that big. All right, now maybe StatsCan made some tweaks to that later on, but you know what I'm saying, right? This year, we're now seeing, harvest results, and not for everybody. Like, I look at the Peace region, the crops up there, not stellar, for the most part. They're coming in below, crop insurance index levels. I look at the drought in northeast Alberta as you travel north there. Like, it was, those guys were harvesting peas in late July. It wasn't great there, but there are large swaths of the prairies that are pulling off some good yield. Yeah. And then, so the narrative out there from everyone is, hey, there's a big crop here, bigger than we expected. And we don't have the demand that we would like to see, or not yet anyway. And we're seeing a sharp decline in lentil values, for example. You're seeing that big decline in lentil values because Australia has a big crop coming now as well. And we have a big crop, apparently. You're seeing it in yellow peas and green peas with the tariffs from China. You're seeing that market really under pressure. You're seeing feed barley, just getting absolutely hammered right here. We had that initial drop in feed barley values, held steady. And I was looking here before I hit the record button, and, feed barley's dropped another, $20 a ton. So, you've got that going on. Malt impacted by that as well. We got our malt offer for the farm, and yeah, it's better than the feed market, but man, we're taking some losses in our malt program here this year. All right. So, it's across the board, and it's extremely frustrating and extremely challenging here. Now, hopefully you're in a position where you sit here and say, hey, I'm executing the contracts that I already have in place. I'm just going to execute that, get that delivered, and wait for some better times, avoid harvest pressure, right? You guys look at the canola market last year. The canola market last year, NOV of 25 traded as low as 588 here, September 13th, right? Canola's trading 617 right now. Last year, almost on the same date, we were trading 615, right? We've been here. We have been here, is all I'm trying to say. You find a low of that market, harvest low at, 580 something, and you still have a peak coming in at 750, right? Anyway, so yeah, it's challenging out there. It's not fun. I hope you're in a spot where you're just executing on your contracts. The little problem here, the little hiccup I see is just trying to work our way out of this narrative and trying to find the demand story. And when you talk to the folks that are buying these commodities, they say, yeah, we can get there, but we have to get there at lower values. If we want to compete globally, we have to get there at lower values, and that will get us moving more crop out the door. So we will see where this all goes. I do have some strategies this week. I do have a couple things that I want to highlight here, just a couple comments on some different markets. And yeah, I just encourage you, if you have questions, if you want to review strategy, I'm doing this each and every day, and you can certainly send me a message. Ryan at whatthefuturespodcast.ca works for an email. I can hit me up through the website as well. I'm here to see if we can shed some clarity, some light on some of the scenarios, and see if we can help you out a little bit here this harvest. All right. That's why this show was created, was to help farmers navigate these difficult times here in crop marketing and try to find some little wins along the way. All right. I made some notes here. Spring wheat futures, lowest value since Dece of 2020. KC wheat, lowest since October of 2020. Canola, we were this low early April 3rd, April 4th, around there. Corn's 20 cents off the lows. So maybe the biggest yield number was printed, and we got a little bit of a rally there. And same thing with beans, 50 cents off the lows there as well. So actually some strength in U.S. corn and U.S. soybean futures. So that's good. All right. Before we get into some crop marketing stuff, I do have Kyle Folk joining me this week from Ground Truth Agriculture. We're going to talk about some of the latest technology here on being developed across the prairies. I was joking earlier this week, Labor Day, that, there's a heavy dew, and my grain graders, it was the only time they'd buy donuts was at harvest when a weather event would happen, because they knew they were going to make some money, make bank that winter. So I joked that was the only time they brought donuts. But Kyle's company, they are trying to take away, the human element to this. He didn't say that in those words. I'm just, the way I look at it is take away the human element, because grain grading is very subjective. You can throw the same sample in front of 5 different people and get a couple different scenarios out of it. So they had an update here late August, and I wanted to get Kyle on the show just to talk it through. And yeah, so stay tuned for that in our conversation later this episode. All right. Song of the week here. Let's get, we started a little poppy. We started a little light on the karaoke. Of course, you can find the playlist, What the Futures, hashtag Harvest 25. That's on YouTube Music. We started with just a couple of light songs to get your vocal cords warmed up. Now we're going to turn aggressive. All right. We're going to go with Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit, because, sometimes it feels good just to get out there and get some of the rage out, when markets aren't going great, when harvest is maybe a bit of a slog, go in and get, maybe it's a workout instead of breaking something. Maybe you just go and do a workout and lift something heavy, or I don't know what, but let's get more aggressive this week. Let's go with some Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit. So really turning a 180 on you for this one. From here, I just want to give a little bit of love here to the Harvest Photo Contest as well. We are drawing our winner here in mid-October. All you have to do, folks, you're out harvesting, you snap a picture. If you have the What the Futures podcast flag in the picture, I'll give you a bonus entry as well. But you snag a harvest picture, you go to the website, ryandenny.ca. There's a spot that says Photo Contest there. Submit your picture, and you get entered to win a trip for 2, Halifax, Nova Scotia. All right, the Canadian Curling Trials. You have tickets to every draw. If you're a curling fan, this is the trip for you, November 22nd to November 30th. You have 3 meals a day in the VIP lounge, tickets to all the draws, $200 spending spree for merch in the store. I stumbled upon this package, got lucky, and was able to snag it. And hotels are already booked. Your flights are covered. A nice little getaway, Canadian getaway after harvest here to go watch some top-notch curling in our country. So go and check that out. We might have a little update on just some additional benefits of that package as well. In the next couple of weeks here, we had a partner step up and say, hey, this is cool. We want to see if we can help you out on this and provide a little more, let's say, like white glove service. So we got something there that we're cooking up at this moment. So stay tuned over the next few weeks. We'll talk about that. So we got the harvest photo contest. That's great. You guys are also kicking butt here. You're doing great on the subscribe button on YouTube, but you're also kicking butt now on the voicemail. All right. So if you go to whatthefuturespodcast.ca, send voicemail is the button that pops up. Ian, Carl, Val all submitted voicemails here after the live show on Monday. And you're going to get entered to win. We're going to pick at the end of the month here, but we got this John Deere multi-tool. You know, you can never have too many of these kicking around. And we've got these great John Deere Yeti mugs as well. I just want to see if my camera's picking this up. There we go, John Deere Yeti mug for you. And hey, maybe a little courage will go in with that. We'll see. We will see. But big thanks to John Deere. Of course, the voicemail sponsored by the Crop Marketing Made Cool Conference happening December 9th to 11th in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. This is the crop marketing conference put on for you. John Deere, a proud partner of ours for that event here. So thank you, John Deere. So there we go. Keep those voicemails coming. All you have to do right now, this week, this is it. You just say, hey, Ryan, my name is whatever, and I am X% harvested. You know, that's what the folks are talking about. Val was 40%. Carl was 50% harvested. I think Ian was somewhere around 30%. So keep it coming, folks. That's all you have to do. Nice and easy this week for the voicemail button. All right. Crop marketing here for this week. I've got odds and ends written down. Okay. So a couple things here. Obviously, you guys know what's going on from a market perspective. You know, the trend here. Every crop I talk about is at lower values. Like if I want to get the warm and fuzzies about a crop, feeling good about a crop, it's like $18 flax. Like that is where I'm like, oh, wow, that's nice. That's real nice. You know, let's put some yield beside that. Hey, there we go. Like that is about it. Like green peas, I got lucky and made a green pea recommendation at 13 to 14 bucks. Green peas now, I'm happy the bids are back. You know, the bids are back in town. I think we can make a song about that. Use the boys are back in town as the background music. You get what I'm saying, right? So those bids are back, $11 a bushel. So companies, if you were thinking of using force majeure on your $15 contracts, guys, you know, we got something to talk about here. All right. Because you guys are back in the market with bids. You can't use force majeure and have a bid to buy at a lower value. So just keep that in mind. You're on notice on that one. Maple peas, $10 a bushel. You know, that bid's back. Yellows, $6.50 to $7. Now, Chuck's going to join me here on Friday because there's a rumor going around that our yellow peas are too cheap. And Chuck said there's a rumor coming out of India that they may put a tariff here on those Canadian yellow peas. So we'll keep an eye on that. Our peas might be getting a little too cheap. And yeah, Chuck and I I'll get him to answer those for us, that question for us on Friday's live show. So there we go. You know, you start looking at things and it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge out there. There's not a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Well, a couple things I'll note here. So I got laughed at the other day. And I'm going to talk strategy in just a minute here. I got a couple strategy things that I want to review. But I got laughed at. I locked in a basis. We're chatting with a farm and we ended up locking in a basis at the crush plant. It was a minus 15 canola basis. And, you know, the buyers kind of laughing at us and saying, hey, well, you know, it's going to get better than that. You know, I wouldn't lock in a minus 15, but we were all kind of comfortable with that and made that decision before we called. So we just continued on and locked that up. You know, now you look at this a few weeks later, and this is not like a home run success story by any means, but the posted basis now is like a minus 25. And as a joke, I phoned a different buyer to say, hey, like, I'd like to get a minus 15. And they laughed. They're like, yeah, good luck. You know, our basis is just getting worse and our merchant says it's going to get worse yet. Of course, right? And so it's just basis is under pressure right now because we are all going to the same destination. I have not looked at the export figures this week. I have not tried to find out how much canola is being loaded in a vessel in Vancouver. So, maybe I should do that shortly, but I have not done that. But we're all going to the same spot. The one thing with the Bunge-Viterra merger, like now for our farm, our Bunge, what used to be Viterra location, we'd have a quote to deliver there, and that would be part of an export program. I'm sure they did flip some over to the crushers, but it'd be part of an export program. Now our bid is just into this small crush plant in Northeast Saskatchewan that, all these elevators are feeding. So, it's just one of those things where all this early canola is being, used up domestically. We have great crush capacity. That's all good, but we're all going to the same spot. So it's hard to rally a basis when you have big volume coming in from the line companies. This isn't new. It's not new by any means. I have a local buyer here where they don't export any canola. They have a canola bid, and they do a great job of moving it into Cargill and into Bunge, and that's what they do. They make, I don't know, $5 a ton doing it probably, and away they go. Yeah. So this isn't new by any means. Well, it's just one of those things where, in the short term here, your basis levels at your crushers are I don't know if they're going to get a whole bunch better here the next 8 weeks. Hopefully after that, they smarten up, get some export program going. But yeah, it's just another one of those little negative stories that I want to keep an eye on. I told you I was worried about demand. Right? I said I was worried about demand in episode 90. And I was waiting for a merchant to reach out to me and say, Ryan, you're an absolute idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. We got great demand. That didn't happen yet. So merchant, please give me a hand here. Let me know that demand is phenomenal so that we can get off these harvest lows and get some better pricing going. All right. I also want to make mention here from a crop marketing perspective, protein premiums. If you are pulling off high protein wheat, like special high protein wheat, good quality wheat, I would just, you have a negotiation piece. From what I can see, there's a small negotiation piece. Now, it happens often where you get a couple vessels sold of high protein wheat, right off the combine. You may not get more of that done later on this year. You may not see that again, but I'm a little bit curious here if there's a low protein problem. And I just want to highlight, if you have high protein, you might want to just tuck that in the bin. You just tuck it in the bin for a little bit until we sort this out. I don't have the answer for you, but just think about it until we sort this out, because maybe you're sitting on something special there. All right. On the flip side, if you have low protein, pulling off big bushels, low protein, get those discounts locked up. Now, I don't know what all the discounts are across the prairies, but if you're a couple cents per tenth going down on a protein spread as a negative number, go and lock that in. You can make a phone call. Most companies will allow you to convert your schedule once. Premium or discount, they'll lock it in and say, hey, I just want to convert this. I haven't delivered anything yet. Or you deliver a load on, it locks in your spreads. But there's a little something brewing. It may be nothing. It may be these first vessels disappear and not come back. But if you have a big wheat crop in the northern plains, maybe some low protein issues there, it's something we got to dig into and figure out. All right. Other than that, I would just say from a market's perspective, I looked at everything, folks. I went through a bunch of stuff, and there's a little premium for gluten-free oats out there. That's fine. Malt offer, high fives for a price. That's a lot better than 4.5 for feed barley, things like that. But yeah, it's a grind. It is a grind. Well, folks, I talk with farms each and every day, and obviously it's what I enjoy, chatting with farms, trying to figure out strategy solutions. But so many people that I chat with, 4-H comes up all the time. The 4-H sales, the 4-H kids out there. You see all of the great things in the 4-H program, the great, people that come out of that, the leaders that come out of 4-H. And, here's just a couple fun facts, but 4-H kids learn leadership, teamwork, confidence, public speaking is a big one in 4-H. And the best part is that 44% go on to work in agriculture. All right. That's cool. That's impressive. I want to acknowledge here John Deere Canada. Through its foundation and local dealers, they've just invested $175,000 into 4-H Canada. And this funding supports initiatives like the Citizenship Congress and Members Forum across 7 provinces, reaching somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 youth. So, in a time where, there is a lot of negativity in agriculture, 4-H programs are a strength and a great support in our local communities. Great resource to have as well. And so hats off to John Deere for supporting those programs. So here's what we're going to do. Let's get to Kyle Folk with Ground Truth Agriculture. Let's get to that conversation. I'll come back at you with some strategies. We'll do positive moments, eating your veggies, and then I'll get you teed up for my live show with Chuck on Friday. All right, folks, for episode 91, I have Kyle Folk joining me from Ground Truth. Is it Ground Truth Ag, Kyle? Is that what the name of the company is? What do you guys go by?
Yeah, we go by Ground Truth Ag, but officially we're Ground Truth Agriculture, but Ground Truth Ag is good.
All right. Well, this podcast is a little bit laid back, so we might just keep it at ag for you on that one. But awesome. All right. So, Kyle, I listened to a podcast you were on with Dan Aberhard. He's doing a series here, bringing in entrepreneurs, bringing in some of the newer businesses, technology across the prairies, and just shedding light on what's going on. I was very intrigued. I've been watching from the sidelines for a while, but I'm intrigued at what you're working on for a project. And why don't you tell listeners a little bit about what you guys are up to over at Ground Truth? Sure,
yeah. Well, first, I'm glad to hear I piqued your interest. The marketing team is doing something right if that's the case.
Yep.
So we've set out to automate the grain grading process. Ultimately, from the visual aspects, the non-visual aspects, kind of be the one-stop shop, Ryan, for grain quality. And that's not just at the farm gate, that's all the way through the supply chain. And I think that's an important element because with grain quality, if you can't do something consistently at every step through the supply chain, inevitably you're going to have these discrepancies that everybody's going to say, well, I don't care what you did over there because this is what we do here. And we want to eliminate that process to make it a lot easier for everybody.
So right off the bat here, I have to ask, are you talking to the buy side of this equation? What type of friction are you seeing?
Yeah. So coming from farm myself as a kid, growing up, sending samples, bagging samples, those kinds of things. Yeah. I was well aware of from our perspective, I will say just from our perspective alone, we had some concerns with, who was bearing all the risk? Were we getting the short end of the stick? When I come up with this idea and I started going out to the industry to speak to these grain companies, because ultimately, Ryan, if we don't have them on board, this is going to be a very difficult thing to achieve. And so right off the hop, I went out to them and it was it was great when I started talking to them to realize that they were very interested in this. And across the board, everybody I talked to on the grain side was like, please, if you build this, we are a buyer. We would like to have this. And some of their shortcomings, Ryan, that they're dealing with, ton of labor problems. There's jobs that just can't even be filled in certain rural areas. That's a major problem for them. Takes up to 8 years to fully train graders. Which that's based on environmental. I mean, this from your background. And then graders are expected to be about 80% accurate. So you can imagine that causes them all kinds of problems once they have custody or even trying to find the grain to fill contracts.
Yeah. Yeah. The labor thing definitely, that was one thing I highlighted with Dan after that episode, was the labor, savings that you'd see here, and labor is an issue across agriculture. So that's really interesting to me that the friction point is low on the buy side, because my background as a as a buyer, way back in the day. I joked earlier this week, I did a live hit, and there was a heavy dew the morning I recorded. And I said, back in 2009, 2010, the buyer, the grader, pardon me, this would be the only day that they would buy donuts for the whole office. They would come in with a smile on their face, clicking their heels together, buying donuts because an event happened that could change grade. I'm not saying that the dew changed grade earlier this week. I don't think it did by any means, but when weather events happen, that's how grain companies, that's how they make money, right? So, we had a location budget that you had to hit. It's a 7-figure number in blending. It was a big number, and you had to turn something in your facility better by, 7 figures. So I'm a little surprised that there's not as much friction there. So what about from the farmer side? What kind of feedback are you getting? Farmers testing this out on the farm? Like, how's it going on that side?
I would say overall, it's going really well. I think, the biggest thing from a farm perspective, not just the ones that are testing it, but, we knew this from the get-go, is getting this to be something that can be that de facto, quality standardization or equipment that can provide this standardization. And so, farmers love having an understanding of what they have from a quality perspective, not something historically that has been available to us. And so knowing that and starting to be able to make some decisions, or even just having an expectation when you're, filling a contract or sending some loads to the elevator, that's been very well received. But then starting to think about the next things of like, what could I do with this information now? And what are the things that I haven't thought of before? And what's the saying? I've said it before on a couple things, but you can't manage what you can't measure. And so we do a great job with yield, but when it comes to quality, as farmers, we don't have the ability to measure that. So we really can't do a whole lot from that perspective. So the response has been good. And then I think we get into the whole, like, how much quality are we as farmers giving away every year? We truly don't know. And so that, that starts to become a thing that once you can actually understand what you have from a quality standpoint, you can start to get a grip on.
So what, like today, you're harvesting a wheat field here the first week of September. Like what characteristics, what are you analyzing right now? Like what's available via analysis today with your tech?
Yeah. So our best model today, we started with hard red spring wheat. That was when we set out into this, started talking to the grain companies, they all said, hey, hard red is one of the hardest, if not the hardest grains to grade. If you can tackle that one, the world's your oyster kind of thing. And so start there and achieve the most difficult thing. So we did. And so we can determine over 50 different characteristics in hard red spring, and not only say that they're there, Ryan, but we can actually tell you how much is there too. So, the gamut from, fungus to insect damage to all kinds of, sprouting, mildew. You talked about dew. So it goes across the board. Now we even break it down, Ryan. We're not even just saying, oh, there's mildew there. Mildew is actually, we follow the Canadian Grain Commission guide. And so mildew is part of degree of soundness, as you know. And so we actually break down degree of soundness. We show you, oh, this wheat would be a number 2 based on degree of soundness. We don't just leave it at that. We let you click into that and see what within degree of soundness caused it to be a number 2. And then we show granularity within there as well. And we don't just tell you it's a number 2. We say it's a 2.1, a 2.2, or a 2.3. So if then you know if it's a good 2 or a bad 2.
Right.
And HVK is the same thing. We break down, there's about 30 different things in hard red spring that can determine, that can downgrade your HVK. We show you all of the aspects of what's downgrading your HVK. And I mean, for me, Brian, when I got into this was a ton of stuff that I didn't even know. It's out there. It's public information. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that know it that know more about it than I did, but I have learned a ton since we've been into this.
The one thing that does drive me a little bit nuts, and I used to see this back in the day, like someone would come into the elevator for a grade, and I'm just daydreaming now of the rooms full of samples we had, and hey, I'm bringing my sample in, and the delay. Like getting your grade back could take a couple of weeks, depending on when you brought them in. So Yeah, markets move a lot faster than that. But I just was thinking that people would walk in, and if you told them, hey, you know what, this is a really, really nice number 2, they were just defeated. They just were so sad that it was. But if you said, this is the ugliest number 1 weed I've ever seen, the joy on their face that they got a number 1, even though it was the ugly number 1. There's the huge difference between that 1 and that 2 when it came to the emotion around it and those expectations. So I'll be honest, Kyle, the 2.1, 2.3, 2.5, whatever the scale is, it does drive me bonkers. I just want to know, is it a 1, a 2, a 3? Within that scale, to me, it doesn't matter. It does drive me a bit bonkers at times. So, all right. You talked Grain Commission for a second there. How's your relationship with the folks over there, and are they receptive to the project that you're working on?
Yeah. So right off the hop, when I first started this company around, kind of before we really had much of anything, I reached out to the Grain Commission just to say, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what we're doing. We're not trying to ruffle any feathers. We're trying to do this, based on your guidelines and the regulations that you have in place. And just kind of kept that communication going with them. And now recently they just launched publicly that they have a process in place for products like ours. So visual or non-visual, but visual specifically, grading factors to apply and get into a project with them where they will do an assessment of the technology and see how well it performs. That's not to be confused with certifying anything. They don't do any certification, but they will do an assessment of the tech and see how well it's going. So we have put our application in there, and we're pretty excited that the Grain it's first ever, right, that the Grain Commission has got this process in place. So we're ecstatic because that's a change that benefits everybody, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. I'll be curious to see how that evolves and that involvement as you guys move forward here. Like when back in the day, so we would get a package from the Grain Commission. I think it was from the Grain Commission. Might have been from head office, but they would send you these little like Petri dishes of all the different grains and pulses, and then they would tell you this is a 1, this is a 2, and this is a 3 and a feed, and so on and so forth. It's the only time I ever saw a number 1 pea was in those Petri dishes. Yellow peas never grade number 1 for anybody ever, right? It doesn't have to. But those little dishes had some number 1 yellow peas in them. Anyways, wouldn't it be kind of neat if those samples were tested against your equipment, what you guys are working on as the standard? Wouldn't that be kind of neat?
Oh, it would be fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I think that's important when we move forward in this, whether it's us or another company or multiple companies, this, in my opinion, is coming and is going to be something that becomes a mainstay, and it's going to be across the board. Everybody's going to be using it. I think kind of what you're describing there is very needed in the industry because it can set that golden standard, if you will, on, this is kind of the data set that everybody needs to match and line up with. And then, because the other thing, Ryan, as we develop our product, we are continually and forever going to be updating and improving models. And, we have stuff internally built that we can validate against to make sure that we're not, affecting something negatively when we update something else. But I think that would be amazing if we had this gold standard at some point in time. And I think it'll come. It's just, this is still, although been tried for many years, still, I would call it new.
Oh, definitely. We talked a little bit before hitting the record button, I'm sure at grain elevators, the amount of coffee they go through must be a fraction compared to 20, 30 years ago, because we talked about moisture testers, right? Moisture testers you had to go for a drive and go for coffee to check your moisture. There was, I think about protein machines back in maybe it was like 2015, 2016, protein premiums went bonkers. And a few farms bought refurbished protein testers, right? Every load was getting a protein check. I don't know. Like, do you think if you crystal ball it, do you think that this is like adaptive technology in my, John Deere combine one day where I'm seeing these live readings as I'm harvesting?
Yeah, very much. Actually, we are testing on 4 combines at this moment. It's operating on 4 combines throughout Saskatchewan. And so, we are doing exactly that. So right now, one of the combines is running through hard red spring wheat, and he is getting GPS located information, and it's telling him if he's got any damages, where it came from in his field. We're seeing we're pulling a number of images per acre. And so over the course of a day, instead of, getting that 1 5-gallon pail at the end of the day, the other day he collected 750 images and a whole bunch of NIR spectral scan, actually thousands of them. And so being able to take that data and know that, okay, what we put in that bin today was this, is changing things for sure. And for him too, also being able to know down to the location in the field that some things that he didn't want to see were popping up. And so now he can determine if he's going to do something different or, see what happens next year. But it's going to change some things for sure. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Now, this is a bit of a loaded question, so I apologize for this, but I want to ask it anyway. Do you think today, the system we have today from a grading perspective, do you think that, the farmer is, pulling the wool over the eyes of the grain company on a load of grain for grading? Or do you think it's the grain company that's kind of winning that battle today? Like, farmers are giving up dollars and cents from a grading perspective. Like, and nobody that's listening, don't get offended about this question. It's an honest question, and we'll see where it goes. Don't get mad at me or Kyle for asking or answering. Okay.
I have said in other times I'm speaking about things, Ryan, that I don't think farmers are crooks. This is my disclaimer. I don't think farmers are crooks, being one of them. I don't think grain buyers are doing anything nefarious. And I truly believe we need the CGC and, in the US, it's the USDA. But I don't think anybody wins that, Ryan. I really don't think anybody wins. I don't think a grain company wins, and I don't think a farm wins. And the reason I say that is because when you are dealing with unknowns, what do? You cover your ass. And I don't care if you're on the farm side or the grain buyer side, you have to. Yep. You have to cover your ass. And so then who's getting the short end of the stick? Well, whoever you're dealing with. And from a farm perspective, I'm trying to do what I can to make the most money for myself too, but I don't know what I'm working with. So, I guess you could maybe say that the farmer with less information doesn't really know what they're working with as much. But the grain buyers are not out to get anybody. I could tell you that. At the end of the day, they're filling a contract downstream the same way that a farmer's filling a contract. Once they take custody of that, they got the same problems that farmers dealing with putting it through. I just want to be able to give the farm the ability to grade that the same way that a buyer can. And so now everybody's on the same level playing field. I mean, this is not talked about, Ryan. This is the don't shoot the messenger. There's nobody on the other end of this, but in a year where stuff starts showing up, that's not good. And from a quality perspective, but if a farmer sneaks something through, right? If I'm the farmer and not even knowingly, right? Just I sold something, I delivered something, and I got away with something. Maybe I realized it after the fact. Maybe I don't even know. When that becomes known at some point in time, and that might be after the rail cars are loaded and it's going somewhere else and they discover it further down the line. Yep. There has to be right setting that happens somehow. And so it's not like they're going to come back on me for that, but they got to make sure that their contracts are filled accordingly with the right spec. And so they're going to have to then, maybe they got to take some stuff that's a little worse or a little better and fill that and blend that into the right recipe. Anyway, I just don't think anybody wins without the information.
Yeah. As you're saying that, I just think about even the machine on the other end. Whatever country's buying this, they buy a number 214, whatever spec, and they sit there and are excited about the consistency, right? Like this can kind of come down the entire pipeline. So I maybe I'm starting to see why the buyers would be on side with this here too.
I would say too, Ryan, if I could, just from a buyer perspective, they blend grain. We all know that. There's no secrets there. They blend it. Yep. Well, what are they going to do a better job of blending? grain that they know what the quality is or grain that they're guessing what the quality is.
Yeah.
And then with working with the farmers, they're going to be able to work with us a lot better if they know what they're working with versus this unknown all the time.
Yeah. And I got two things to add there, but as a buyer and as a grader, history and relationship, it comes into play as well. And I remember the graders, we'd be doing, this is Canadian Wheat Board days, but you'd be doing some type of deal. The elevator manager, everyone would come together. They say, oh, this farm, whatever they say, they do. They deliver whatever they said. They have that history, right? And that would pay dividends for the farm often to be like, yep, we know that they're going to deliver what they say, and that pays the bills. One other comment. So for me, again, people can get mad at me at this one if they want, but you have a facility built where its goal is to maximize spec, maximize shipping, be efficient. Like if a farmers, like we put up big bins and big bags, like we do everything in bulk. And so we set up poorly to take advantage of the specs from the Canadian Grain Commission or the specs of our contract that we're signing. If we knew that we could blend 5% of other grains into this load and could do it efficiently and effectively without causing an alarm or raising a flag or getting a penalty, we would do it. But we're just not equipped for that. We build these massive structures that just are not equipped to be very specific. And we're kind of like Costco. We're selling it as wholesale and trying to be as efficient as we can. We're not trying to maximize blending and stuff like that. So anyway,
that same theory though, Ryan, is applying now across the board. So graders, so you touched on it. We used to go into the elevator and have a coffee and get a moisture tested or take a sample in and have them grade it. We weren't in an extravagant amount of hurry to get, it was like a bit of a social outing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And now at the scale of which farming has accelerated to, not just on the farm, but at facilities as well. So you have to think about what you just talked about is we don't set ourselves up quite right. This is across the board. And so a grader is expected to grade a sample in, sub 10 minutes when it's being delivered to the facility. Mm-hmm. Well, there's no way. So I can tell you, Ryan, we here have graded samples fully, like every single thing that is in a sample. We had a human grade it that had been grading for his entire career. He's retired and he comes in with us here all the time. It takes about a week to 2 weeks to grade an entire sample working 8 hours a day because there's just so much stuff to count in that sample.
Yeah.
Now, if you're doing it specifically down to every minute little detail, that's what it takes. It's insane. So now do it in 10 minutes. Okay, well, then you have to focus on what's the worst thing in the sample. What am I looking for? Let's get it. Let's do it. We're against the clock. Let's get this done. Well, then take that. And now you're loading a rail car. You're loading a rail car in under 4 minutes at a lot of facilities now. How are you doing a great job of grading that grain that's going into that rail car that is moving down the line and going somewhere, like you said, to some other destination? Mm-hmm. It's very difficult. Then you get it to port. The Canadian Grain Commission is grading one sample out of every 2,000 tons that, by the way, has already been loaded onto the ship. Yeah. So then they grade it. If something's wrong, you're about 3,000 tons behind and you got to say, stop. So this scale that you talked about, that we don't set ourselves up, it doesn't just apply to the farm. It's all the way through. I mean, something needs to give here to be able to handle this scale and the clip at which we need to feed the world.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, we're not going to get any smaller, right? So we need the technology to catch up for sure. All right. I heard the other day an elevator was upset about a grade being different at the coast than what they had sent and the penalty involved. And I always associated that with just head office penalizing them. But maybe I don't know if there's a Grain Commission penalty or not, but if merchants listening or someone in that line of business, reach out to the show here and let's get some clarity around that. All right, Kyle, I got one more comment here. So we had 3 graders when I was working at Well, it was Viterra back in the day. I don't know if you remember Viterra, Kyle, but it's used to be called Viterra. And there's 3 graders, and people would phone in and say, "Hey, I'm scheduled to haul this week. Who's grading?" And we'd say, "Well, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is this person. Thursday, Friday, Saturday is this other person." And they'd say, "Okay, we'll see you on Thursday." So it just, you had the notorious, they were almost these notorious like gangster graders out there. Everyone knows them. They all have a history, and they were, one was more lenient and one was a little stricter is how it went. So, and we had one guy who was kind of in training, so he kind of flip-flopped. You didn't know what you were going to get with him any given week. So anyways, all right. Now, what do you have here we got farmers and combines and trucks here listening harvest time. Like, what message do you have for them when it comes to ground truth ag? Is there anything that they should be thinking about right now or reaching out to you guys about?
Yeah. I mean, I think, while you're out there, while you're harvesting, while you're trucking, think about what you could do differently if you knew completely what you had from a quality perspective. So, that whole, how much quality or grade are we as a farm giving away every year unknowingly? And where could we, zero in on being, better with it or understanding it better? And, reaching out to us and letting us know what those things are that hey, this situation occurred. And if I had known my quality, we could have saved ourselves. You don't have to give me numbers, but we could have saved ourselves some money. And those things for me, I hear them quite frequently, but I'm always fascinated that the more people start having this kind of mindset with, having what would I do with an understanding of quality? Love hearing that stuff.
Yeah. And we have some years are different, right? And even today, 2025, you have a little protein premium here that's starting to, evolve. We don't know what that's going to be yet, what that looks like, but there's that heavier discounts on some of this lower protein. If you could figure that out on the fly, you could definitely extract some value there. And then we'll see with, some of the weather we've had. It's, some folks have faced a pretty wet start to harvest, and, how could you evolve and change? And even then, like from a buyer perspective, this might be a number 3 for this certain spec. And this other one might be a number 3 for this certain spec. But if we put them together, maybe it could turn into a 2. Like, there could be advantages like that as well, where you have different factors and you cancel them out and you make something better out of it. So
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, downgraded because of test weight, and then you have something else that's downgraded because of something entirely. Yeah. I think 100%.
Yeah. Cool. Now, all you have to do next is build a database where you have all the sample results in it, where farmers can like partner up and be like, hey, I have a different issue than that guy. Let's get our grain together and maximize this. So there's an idea for you in the future.
There you go. The non-infrastructure elevators going out to the farm. Yeah.
Yeah. Virtual elevator. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle, appreciate your time this week during harvest. Thanks for coming on the show. And yeah, best of luck to you guys. I'll be staying in tune with what's going on and looking for the latest and greatest updates from your group there at Ground Truth Ag.
Thanks, Ryan. It's been a pleasure.
All right, folks. Well, that was fun with Kyle going over, grading and the industry that way. We do have a survey out. If you get the emails on Friday, we do have a little blurb in there, and then we put, past episodes, so you can kind of play around with that a little bit. But we do have a survey going on. And the one thing that came back, I'm just asking for your opinion on the show and what to do. And, getting a mix of guests in, just getting some different perspective in, that's come across as one of the themes. And of course, it can be crop marketing all the time. But there's other things going on, like Ground Truth Ag and what Kyle's working on. So I thought it was cool to have him on, and we're going to check in again here after harvest and just talk about some of the results that they saw. All right. Okay. So I want to talk strategies here for a second. I'm actually, I'm going to get like the original gangster here of crop marketing. Of course, the theme for the conference in Moose Jaw is this kind of gangster Chicago Al Capone theme. And so I don't know if John will appreciate me calling him like the gangster of crop marketing here for Western Canada. But John DePap, I'm going to have him on the show hopefully next week, because this a strategy that I've been executing on for the last number of months here is writing call options, selling calls. And I strongly encourage you to reach out to, maybe it's through your grain buyer line company. You can do this through them, or your broker. Reach out to the professionals, the ones that, have all the certification to go over this stuff. But it's been an effective strategy for my farm and for my clients, just writing these call options. And the other day, I put this in with the Lunchbox crew as well about writing calls a couple of weeks ago. And at the time, you could sell a $700 call and a November call, $700, and you were going to get $22 to $25 a ton. So you just receive that premium. Now, if the market goes above that level, above your strike, then you are basically committed at that 700. So for example, if you sold or wrote a $700 November call, then got $20 for it, your 720 would become your break even on that. But if you went to 730 or 740 in a rally, you wouldn't be participating in that. That'd be a marginable position. And so you're basically, it's not a target per se, but I set it up as in my example, as kind of a target. Like, where would you sell canola? And I had 680, 700, 720, 750 as a number. And I had the values of what you could write those calls for. And so right now you're just, if I wrote that call, a $700 call, I'm probably sitting here at like $8 now to get out of that thing. So I'm in the good by $15 a ton or something like that. And so John actually, he's got the Trading Floor is the platform that John has launched here not long ago. And he had a great explanation of, he said, this is an update on our paper targets and a great explanation on, selling on paper. And he's going to come and talk through this, writing these calls, because yes, they're selling grain 100% and selling grain when the signals are there and when it's the right time and all that stuff. But there's, crop marketing is 24/7, 365. And this is just a way where you're extracting some premium out of the marketplace. It's not really that uncomfortable if you're willing to make, cash sales at those strikes that you're writing those calls at. But it's been very effective for me. Like, I have calls that we wrote, we wrote calls at 820 in June, 800, 750, all the way down to 650. And some of those, we received over $1 a bushel, writing those calls. And as of recording this, everything is, we haven't taken on any losses. Kind of wish we did, right? It just means the market would have rallied and you always have something to sell crop wise. So it's just a way to extract value. In John's example, again, he'll talk about it next week, but he's extracted here since, August, 21st. He's, in line to extract about 78 cents on a strategy per bushel. And again, you're just looking to piece together these little wins along the way that add up to that path to profitability, to positive margin. And this is a bit of an aside, but I didn't want to go on this episode or any of the episodes here over the next 4 to 8 weeks and say, this is the stuff that we have done. Like, this is the stuff that you should have done, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm nowhere near perfect. Far from it. And that doesn't help anybody. Like, that doesn't help anybody moving forward. What you should have done, what I wish I would have done, doesn't help me tomorrow. And so strategy wise, I'm just looking at things that still, in my opinion, makes sense. For these little wins along the way. And yeah, it doesn't help you to go back and say you should have, could have, whatever. We'd all be a lot, we'd all be on some island if we knew how to do that, but living the dream. But anyways, you see a lot of that right now in the space. And I should have ranted about this a bit earlier in the episode, but it doesn't help anybody telling us what we should have done. It's what can I do today? What can I do tomorrow, right? In this scenario. So anyways, this is still a strategy. I was looking at 680 March calls, writing those calls and extracting 50 cents on those ones. Like there's just little things here to work on. Identify your trends and figure out strategy around that. Okay. On wheat, very well documented on this one that, selling these, early movement, not calling it a special, early movement, selling early movement on spring wheat, replacing those with call options and KC wheat for the most part, a little bit of Chicago in there as well, a little bit of corn. But a KC at the money December call, is about 20 cents plus your fees, right? And so if you could extract, I've said it, the early movement price is $7.50, and then they take that away, and you're staring down to $6.70. Like, what the heck happened, right? It's not true stuff, but you're starting at $7.50. Maybe you put 10 or 20 cents against that call option as a cost. You got upside potential. Again, I just think it's a way that you could still be moving wheat here before the big glut slows us right down. At some point, folks, farms harvest the crop, put it in the bin, submit the samples, and then make a game plan. And I just, it's gotta be tough here. It's gonna be tough. It already is tough. It's gonna get a little bit tougher as we work through that. All right. So this is just one way where I've got some clients just rifling wheat out. The wheat is just flying out the door, and we're participating in upside a different way. Last thing, strategy wise, I just wanted to make note of this one here as well. Yellow peas. You could throw green peas in the mix here. You could throw maples in the mix as well. I think I have maples. What do we have? Maples pre-sold at $17 a bushel. Yeah. So it's just about, figuring out your average price. So I had a, farm the other day where they sold some $7 yellow peas. It was part of our cash flow plan and part of our space plan to move these peas. And yeah, we weren't happy at $7 by any means, but our average price for the year was $8.83. And I've had this conversation a lot of times the last couple of weeks, but just figuring out your average price. I'm not saying that you should sell them at $7, but if you say, hey, how did I do? I sold bushels here, and here. What's my average price? Like maybe that gets you to break even or to a profit. And you can look at that a little differently and say, okay, that's not that bad. I did okay marketing my yellow peas here in 2025. I can move these out and move on. I don't know when the next vessel's, what it looks like. Is it a December pea program? At what price? Should be higher than these harvest lows, I would imagine. But it's just one of those things where if you need to generate the cash or the space, just think about your average price, and maybe that'll make you feel a little bit better in the decision. All right. And last thing here for strategy is just taking a peek at the carry in the wheat market, looking at that 50, 60, 70 cents out there for next year. Again, does that come back to a break even for your farm? I don't think anyone's doing numbers right now. Hopefully you did them earlier, but what's your break even look like for 2026? Is there a path there to profitability, and can you take advantage of that? All right. The trend is your friend, folks. And right now the trend is down. So how can we get ahead of it, as best we can? All right. So positive moments here for episode 91. Preschool started this week. It's one of the rare families. So Willa is doing her third year of preschool because she is a fall birthday. And, we made the decision for one more year of preschool. So we have we had an emotional day one of the third year of preschool, and Finley's going to start preschool here in January when he turns 3 years old. And so first day of preschool, going through all the rigmarole there of everything. But, it's great. Willa and her mom did back to school shopping, and she had her outfit picked out for today and her new shoes. And You remember how it was when you were a kid as well, but going back to school, it was kickoff of the year. And, it was the only new pair of shoes I was going to get for 12 months and my new outfit or two. Right. And so it's always special. It's fall time, harvest time, my favorite time of year, as well as the fall and preschool kicked off for this week. We didn't wrap up camping. I got the family convinced for one more camping trip, but, we had a great week of camping here and some great weather. And yeah. The other thing too, if I want to throw this as a positive moment for my brother and my dad here, we'll throw it in here as well. Is just, the slow pace of harvest on our farm where you get some days off between crops. So, you get that rest, that well-needed rest after a couple of big days. So we're, as of recording this, hopefully we've started on wheat. But last test was 19%. We're going to go and take it here right away. We'll run some through the dryer. But it's been a bit of a slow start here for harvest. So getting some rest in between. All right, folks, that's it for positive moments for this week. Okay, so for eating your veggies this week, I didn't have much written down. I think that some of the easy ones here would be like, taking good samples. I don't think that's going to blow your socks off from a strategy perspective, but especially in wheat, your durum, just knowing what you have, just make sure you take some good samples and maybe there's a way to extract premium later on this winter, from that. Execute your plan, stay laser focused on what you need to accomplish. Try not to overthink it, but try not to be overwhelmed by the whole thing. If that makes sense, like boil it down to where am I at from a cash flow perspective? How far am I along here? If I deliver my contracts, like when am I good with cash flow? How far can I go here? Because if you can buy yourself some time, we'll get through our harvest lows and then see where we go from here. And so what does that look like? It's really, can be overwhelming when you're looking at everything as a whole and trying to figure out what to do. But if you can breathe a little easier if you say, wow, I just did the math. I'm good for cash flow until November 1st, or I'm good until the new year. Buy yourself a little bit of breathing room. Your collar won't feel as tight. You'll feel a little looser. And it's challenging. It's challenging when you've got the stress and the pressure, and we usually don't make great decisions when that's going on. So just try to break that down into a smaller chunk and execute that part. All right. So for eating your veggies, I would just say, kind of execute with laser focus, but also try not to take too big of a bite here on the whole thing. Other than that, for this week, folks, for number 3, if you are inclined, the one thing you can do is, and this might help you a little bit as well, sleep a little easier, is just, figure out strategies where you can deliver grain, but also have upside potential. So again, sometimes we get through harvest and we look back and say, man, was that ever stressful? Those lows really, really sucked. And then we get out of it and we're like, wow, the rally's on here, or something's happened where prices are climbing. And we say, in some cases you sit there and say, man, I sold too much. I sold some at the low there. What was I thinking? Anyways, just talk to your buyers out there, your brokers, about, okay, like how can I do something here? If I need to generate some cash or I need to move some grain, what can I do and still participate in upside down the road? Like what's available to me? And that, again, that's just another thing that will help you sleep a little better here down the road. All right. So that's it for eating your veggies for this week. All right, folks. Well, I certainly appreciate you hanging out with me for episode 91. Again, I'm going to go live with Chuck Friday, September 5th, 8:30 Mountain. That's when we're going to get after it here. And we'll send that out to you as soon as we can. It's just that time of year, folks. Reach out to the people on your team. You don't have to make these decisions on your own. You've got a partner in the farm, in the business. You've got, a spouse to support you, family to support you. You've got industry folks all around you here that want to help as well. Lean on those people during these times. We'll get through this. We'll figure it out. We've been here before. We'll get through it and go from there. All right. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please share it with a friend, a neighbor, colleague in Western Canadian agriculture. Again, thanks for spending some time with me for the What the Futures podcast. My name is Ryan, and with my new camera this week, I'm out of here. All right. Take care.